My name is Katie Abbott, and I'm an assistant professor of gerontology at Miami University and a Scripps Gerontology Center research fellow. Our preference-based living team has created an educational training video series to support provider communities implementing the Preferences for Everyday Living Inventory, or PELI for short, as part of their journey to providing person-centered care. If you have watched our other training videos, you know that we advocate for beginning the assessment process by asking the individual to tell us about his or her preferences from their perspective. However, what do you do if the individual is unable to report their preferences? At that point, we recommend talking with someone who knows the individual well and may be able to shed some light on their likes and dislikes. We refer to this as engaging with a proxy who may be a friend, family member, or someone who has recently provided care to the individual. This video is appropriate for providing education to all team members who conduct preference assessments or interviews where a proxy may be needed. We have also developed a training guide to accompany this video, which can be used for discussion with the care team during or after watching the video. We have developed our recommendations based on our experience and expertise of over 15 years of development, testing, and implementation of the PELI in various organizations. However, we also recognize that regulations change. Please use our advice within the context of specific regulations you may need to meet. We hope you find this video, hosted by my colleague, Dr. Jennifer Heston of Miami University's Scripps Gerontology Center, to be a helpful educational tool.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Heston, and I've been working in long-term care for over 25 years. We all know that the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, mandate a comprehensive, person-centered care plan for each individual that reflects their specific needs and preferences. Person-centered care, as defined by CMS, includes making an effort to understand what each resident is communicating, verbally and non-verbally, identifying what's important to each resident with regard to daily routines and preferred activities, and having an understanding of the resident's life before coming to reside in the nursing home. Organizations that conduct comprehensive preference assessment and use that information in care planning are better able to meet CMS regulations for person-centered care. When preferences are assessed and honored, people have a greater sense of autonomy, improved quality of life, and better emotional well-being. Care team members who know a person's preferences can anticipate their needs and work more efficiently, spending their time where it has the greatest impact. The foundation for successful care planning begins with a preference interview. If an individual is unable to communicate their preferences, family and friends can be great resources to discover interests that can be used to create unique and tailored care plans. However, a proxy is not a replacement for the resident's voice. It's a complement in the care planning process. In this video, we'll provide guidance on when and how to engage proxies to assist care team members in learning about an individual's preferences. The first scene outlines the process for determining when a proxy should be used.
Hey, Ryan, can I talk to you for a minute? It's about Mr. Harris.
Sure, Tim. Have a seat. Is Mr. Harris all right?
Yeah, he's okay. I'm just having a little trouble with the PELI questions. I just came from his room after trying to conduct the interview. He was really confused by the questions and started getting frustrated and anxious, so I thought I better stop the interview.
I see. What's his BIM score?
Oh, let's see. Last assessment he scored a 9.
Okay, well, it's certainly possible that he would still be able to report his preferences. Maybe it just wasn't a good time of day. Are you available tomorrow to try again at a different time?
Well, we've already tried on 3 different days and different times of the day. I'm just not sure it's a good idea for us to keep trying when it seems to make him so anxious.
Okay, I didn't realize this was your 3rd attempt. What happened on the other tries?
Well, our new activities assistant, you know Amber, she tried to conduct the interview on one of the days that she comes in early. Unfortunately, Amber hasn't been here long enough for Mr. Harris to be comfortable with her. So when she started the interview, Mr. Harris got confused about who she was and asked her to leave. Amber knows not to force the interview, so she did as Mr. Harris asked.
What happened on the second time?
Second time I asked Sarah to try, since she's been here for over a year and Mr. Harris is more familiar with her. She works mostly in the evenings, so we thought that time might be better.
And did the different time of day help?
Well, Sarah was able to get through the introduction and the first question about what name he prefers to be greeted by. He was able to tell us his name and what he liked to be called.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, she tried to do the interview in his room, but Mr. Harris did not want to sit still. She knows that he likes to take a walk after dinner, so she tried to ask the questions while they walked together, but this still confused and agitated him.
Research shows that individuals with mild to moderate dementia can still report their preferences reliably and consistently. A person's score on an instrument like the BIMS or MMSE may not always be the best indicator of their ability to convey their preferences. Everyone has good days and bad days, so it's important to provide several opportunities for the resident to share their preference information. Sometimes it helps to have a care team member who's familiar to the individual conduct the interview. They may be better equipped to adapt their approach and determine when to stop or continue the interview.
Well, it sounds like Sarah tried to adapt but didn't have much success. What happened today?
Well, since others had trouble, I wanted to try to conduct the interview with Mr. Harris myself, and I knew we hadn't tried an afternoon yet. I know he likes to take a nap after lunch, so I waited till he was up and walking around. I asked if I could visit in his room, and I attempted to start the interview.
How'd it go?
Well, I started where Sarah left off with the questions about his morning routine, but the 5 response choices really confused him, so I simplified things right away, only asking if it was important or not important to him.
And did that help?
Well, it seemed to at first, but when I got to the questions about his morning routine, he wasn't able to tell me an answer. He told me that the girls helped him, referring to the aides. I tried asking again, but that didn't work. And then I moved on to the question about bathing, but I got the same reference to the girls.
So it sounds like he's aware of his morning routine but isn't able to communicate his preferences.
Exactly.
So did you stop the interview there?
Well, I thought it might be better to try his preferences for activities and leisure, so I jumped ahead to those questions.
And did you have any more success with those?
No, he was aware that we offer activities, but again became frustrated when I asked what his favorite activities are. I tried to ask more, but he said he didn't like the questions, so I thought I'd better stop. And well, here we are.
Well, thanks, Tim. It sounds like you followed procedure and really tried your best to get Mr. Harris's preferences.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think we're likely to learn more about his preferences by interviewing him.
Okay. I'll take a look at Mr. Harris's contacts and reach out to some family to help with the PELI. Thank you so much, Tim.
Of course, thank you.
Individuals with cognitive or communication limitations should not be sidestepped right away. Although Mr. Harris has a diagnosis of dementia, the care team approached him 3 separate times and even tried to adapt how they conducted the interview to meet his needs. The care team member also explained the unfolding technique related to the response options. This is a technique that can help simplify the response choices by beginning with the simple question of whether a preference is important or not important. Then if the person says it is important, you can ask, would you say somewhat or very important? If they say it's not important, you can move on to the next question. When an individual is unable to participate in a PELI interview, we recommend seeking out a family member or close friend who knows the individual's preferences well and can speak on their behalf. This person could be their power of attorney or other responsible party, but it could also be another family member or friend who visits frequently. Keep in mind there may be multiple people who can provide information. For example, children may know about their parents' favorite activities, but not their preferences for personal care. In this case, it might be helpful to have staff weigh in on the individual's personal care preferences. Next, you'll need to decide how the preference information will be collected. Interviews can take place in person or via phone, video chat, email, postal mail, or a combination of these. Although obtaining preference information through the mail is an option, we've found this is the least successful method. If possible, it's best to engage the proxy in person or over the phone. Once the method is decided, designate a care team member to conduct the interview at a time that's convenient for the proxy. Our experience is that multiple attempts are often needed to connect with proxies. In the following scenes, we show how the care team determines the appropriate proxy for Mr. Harris, as well as how they will conduct the proxy interview with his representative.
Hey Morgan, can I talk to you for a minute?
Hey Ryan, what's up?
You're in Mr. Harris's neighborhood most evenings, correct?
Yep, that's right.
I was wondering if you can tell me which of his children visit the most often. We're gonna need some help answering his PELI questions.
Sure. I know he has 3 kids, but I've never seen his 2 daughters here. I've only seen his son James, and he's usually here at least twice during the week. I know he usually comes after dinner in the evenings and on the weekends too. He usually brings his kids with him. Mr. Harris loves to see his grandchildren, so yeah, I would try James.
This is great. Thanks for your help, Morgan.
No problem.
Hello?
Hi, is this James?
Yes, this is he.
Hi, James. This is Ryan with Oakwood Meadows. I'm hoping you have a few minutes to talk about your dad's preferences.
Yes, I have a few minutes.
Great. Okay, so we use a tool called Preferences for Everyday Living Inventory, or PELI, to learn more about our residents.
Oh, yeah, I believe I saw that.
Yes, it was in the move-in packet. Our staff tried asking your dad some of the PELI questions, but we weren't able to get much information about his preferences. So we're hoping you would be able to help us learn more about his likes and dislikes by answering a few questions. We could do it now, or we can schedule a more convenient time if necessary.
I can't right now, but I will be to visit my dad on Saturday. Can I meet you around 2:30?
Sure. I'll have to confirm with our activities director that someone's available to meet with you then, but let's go ahead and save that date. I'll be in contact as soon as I have someone to meet with you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, James. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
The previous scene highlighted one way of determining an appropriate proxy. The care team consulted a direct care worker who was able to provide insight into which of Mr. Harris's family members visits most often. Frequent visitors are likely to know about their loved one's preferences. Although our video uses the individual's family member, other responsible parties or close friends are also appropriate to use as proxies. You'll need a process for contacting the proxy to explain why their input is valuable and to schedule the interview. In our scenario, James expressed that he had limited time to talk on the phone during the day. The care team was able to accommodate this by scheduling an in-person interview at a time that was convenient for him. In the next scene, the activities staff take the lead in conducting the PELI interviews. However, someone from nursing, social services, or even a volunteer can be designated, as long as they've been trained in conducting PELI interviews. If you're conducting interviews by phone, schedule the interview at a time that's convenient for the proxy. When you call, confirm that it's still a good time for them to chat. At the beginning of the call, explain the reasons why you're seeking information about their loved one's preferences. If the interview will be done in person, choose a location that's quiet and private, and if possible, include the resident in the interview. Again, you'll want to explain the reason for the interview and emphasize the important role their input plays in individualizing the resident's care. Whether over the phone or in person, you'll also need to review all the interview instructions with the proxy. Emphasize that you're seeking what the proxy thinks the resident would prefer, not what the proxy prefers.
Thanks for accommodating my schedule, Tim. I really appreciate it. Sorry that Dad couldn't join us.
Oh, there's no need to apologize, James. We try to include individuals in all aspects of their care if it doesn't have a negative effect on them, but your dad really seems to enjoy balloon volleyball, so I'm not surprised we couldn't pull him away from the game. Amber will ask him if he wants to join us when they're done playing.
That's okay. It is good to see him laughing and enjoying himself. After Mom's passing, it was really hard on him, and at times he seems to get more lost and confused without her.
Yeah, I'm sure that has been hard. That's why I was glad you were so willing to help us with the PELI interview. Your insights will give us ideas of how best to comfort him when he's feeling sad.
Yeah, when my sisters and I were going over his move-in packet, it became overwhelming to get Dad moved. And to be honest, those questions seem like a lot.
No worries, James. I know it can be daunting, and most people aren't used to answering questions about preferences, let alone in such detail.
Yeah, we really didn't understand why preferences were so important.
Well, a lot of new residents and families feel that way. We actually just started including this brochure in our move-in packet to explain why we ask these questions.
Thanks.
Knowing his preferences will help us provide meaningful activities as well as make sure he's comfortable in the care that he's receiving. It'll also help us for ways to improve or things we may need to change to make sure his preferences are honored whenever possible.
In our scenario, Tim demonstrates that he understands the importance of trying to include Mr. Harris in a discussion about his preferences. He also explains the role James plays in the planning of his dad's care. James, like many family members you may encounter, didn't understand why knowing an individual's preferences is so important. Be prepared to explain to family and friends how preferences play a part in the delivery of person-centered care. To help you do this, you can download, customize, and print the Your Preferences Matter brochure from our website.
Okay, great. I think I'm understanding now.
Great. So you ready to get started?
Sure.
All right. So here's how this process works. I'm going to ask you about your dad's preferences, and I'd like you to answer as if he has no barrier to pursuing those preferences. We want to know what's important to him regardless of what limitations he may have now. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, I think I can do that. I'm just glad my sisters aren't here. They think they know what's best for everyone.
Well, that's understandable. We know families care about their loved ones. But what's important in this process is to make sure that we try and understand what your dad likes and dislikes.
Okay, got it.
All right, so I'm going to ask you how important specific preferences are to your dad, and I'm going to ask you to choose an answer.
Okay.
Very important, somewhat important, not very important, not important at all, or important but can't do. If something is very important or somewhat important, I'll ask additional questions to learn more about that preference.
Tim did a great job of explaining the process to James, but sometimes, even with a good explanation, the response options can still be confusing for the person being interviewed. In the next scene, Tim will demonstrate how to modify the responses to simplify things for the proxy.
You know, Tim, I'm not really comfortable with these answer choices. I know what important is, but when it comes to very important or somewhat important, I'm really not for sure.
That's not a problem. We can try it another way. Would you say it's important or not important for your dad to spend time by himself?
He never did much by himself. He was always with family, so I don't think alone time is that important.
Okay, alone time is not important. How about doing things with groups of people? Is that something that's important or not important to your dad?
That's important. Dad always liked bringing everyone together.
All right, do you happen to know whether this one might be very important or somewhat important?
That's very important.
All right. How about meeting new people? Is that important or not important to your dad?
I think that's important. Since he's alone, he needs to start meeting new people.
Okay, I hear you, but is meeting new people important to your dad?
Well, I don't know. Dad was always the reserved one, and mine was the more outgoing. But he did have a close group of tight-knit friends that he hung out with, so either he was with family or with his friends.
Do any of his friends live here at Oakwood Meadows?
I doubt it. I haven't seen any family or friends here. But since Mom is gone, I think it would be important for him to be around other people.
Well, I know your dad's situation has changed. He's living in a new place, and your mom is no longer with him. But if he didn't enjoy meeting new people in the past, chances are he won't enjoy it now.
But can he make new friends? Can't you get him into like a social club or some kind of organization to get him to socialize?
Well, I know you don't want your dad to be lonely, but it's important that we honor what he prefers. In your dad's case, being around groups of people he doesn't know might make him uncomfortable.
You're right. I don't want him to get upset when meeting new people. And I don't want to make him uncomfortable, but at the same time, I don't want to see him lonely.
We can always invite him to group activities, like our coffee and chat hour. It's a small group of people and we're very welcoming. Of course, it's his choice. If he doesn't want to go, we won't force him. But, he really seems to enjoy those balloon volleyball games, and he seems to get along with everyone else who's playing.
Well, I guess I can't ask for much more. If he's found something that he enjoys, then I'm happy. I can say that meeting new people really is not that important.
One of the challenges of working with proxies is determining whether the information they share is truly the preference of the individual or what the proxy prefers for them. Here, the level of social interaction James thought was important seemed to differ from his dad's preference. Tim did an excellent job of advocating for Mr. Harris and reminding James that it's his dad's preferences they're trying to honor. Like Tim, you must be prepared to redirect the proxy and remind them of the goal of the interview. In the next scene, Tim will demonstrate how to respond when a proxy thinks their loved one's limitations prevent them from engaging in preferred activities.
Great. So, next question. Is it important for your dad to reminisce about the past?
Oh, I don't know. He really gets confused.
Well, I know that your dad's cognitive ability has changed, but his preferences may not have. Was reminiscing about the past important to him?
I feel pretty sure that this is important to him because he was a great storyteller. But now, when he tells me things, sometimes he's aware and sometimes he's not. It looks like he's very confused.
I bet those days when he's more forgetful can be really tough for you.
Yeah, it is tough on the family too. My sister, she doesn't even come and visit him anymore because she starts to cry and get frustrated. Then it makes my dad worried because he's trying to figure out what he did wrong. And, it's just a really sad time right now.
James, I know this can't be easy for you and your family to go through. It's really hard to watch your dad becoming more easily confused. But, if reminiscing about the past was something that was important to him, knowing what he liked to talk about could really help us.
Even if he's confused?
Yes, bringing up the past or talking about things that he enjoyed can really help us when he's upset. It can also help us strike up conversations or bring things up that'll make him smile.
Oh, okay. I really didn't realize that.
So, what did he like to reminisce about? Family, pets, friends, places he's been?
Oh, family. Family is something very important to him, and man, does he have some crazy stories. You should get him to tell you about how he met my mother.
Great. What else?
His job is very important to him.
Oh, I read in his admission paperwork that he used to be a teacher.
Yes, he was a teacher and a principal for over 35 years. He was very dedicated and devoted to his job. He would rise up early every morning before 6 a.m. to make sure that he got to school to get his day started on time.
What did he teach?
He was a history teacher before he became a principal, and history trivia might be something good to talk about.
All right, that's good to know. Do you think he'd enjoy talking about his time as a teacher and principal as well?
Oh, he has many stories to tell. My mom would tease him all the time because when we're out in the community, even the students who are now adults will always address him as Mr. Harris.
Oh, really? He was able to tell us that he preferred to be called Mr. Harris, and we found that really interesting because it's more formal.
Oh, that is very important to him. Even in school, my sister and I had to address him as Mr. Harris. Teaching respect to his students was something that he emphasized a lot. It's funny. My high school friends to this day still call him Mr. Harris.
Of course, that makes sense now. That's really good to know. Thanks, James.
And he also enjoys music. His mother played piano in the church, and his brothers and sisters were also part of a choir. And when he got older, he actually joined an a cappella group. So music is something that he really enjoys.
I've heard him sing, and he's got a great voice. I'll make sure to invite him to our singing group.
Sometimes family and close friends are discouraged by their loved one's condition and believe he or she can no longer pursue past interests. Remind the proxy that you would like to understand the resident's preferences so the care team can devise creative ways to honor them. Assure the proxy that knowing what their loved one used to like may help you adapt an activity so they can continue to participate and enjoy it. Modifying activities to a person's current abilities is crucial in meeting needs and honoring preferences. Even when the resident is living with significant cognitive challenges, staff can use a strengths-based approach and focus on what the individual is still able to do instead of focusing on their diminished capabilities.
James, thanks so much for sharing those stories about your dad. Knowing about his past is really going to help our care team. You provided a lot of information that would go really well on his preferences for activities and leisure, or PAL card. I think I've mentioned PAL cards to you before.
You have mentioned that in the previous care plan meeting.
Well, I'd like to make one for your dad now that I know more about him. It'll be really helpful for our staff to strike up conversations, and I think people really respond when they know someone cares about their story.
I didn't realize how important those stories were. If a PAL card would help you all relate to my dad better, I think that would make him feel more at home.
Okay, well, then we'll get one started for him and show it to you. And if it's okay, you can give your consent for us to use it in his direct care. But let's jump back to those questions about his personal care routine.
You know, Tim, I think I've answered everything that I can. I know he goes to bed every evening around 8 or 9, and then he wakes up every morning, before 6 a.m. But that's pretty much all that I know.
That's okay, James. You are able to answer the majority of the PELI questions, and that's great. I really feel like I know more about him now, and once we have a PAL card filled out for him, I think the staff will know more about him too. Now, it'll help us provide meaningful activities, and it'll help us with ideas for how to comfort him when he's upset.
But what about his personal care routine, since I wasn't much help in answering the questions?
Well, our direct care workers may be able to help us answer those questions. A couple of them work with him closely and are able to observe his preferences, even if he has difficulty telling us what he likes or doesn't like.
Okay, I hope they can help you.
Well, they may have already figured some of these things out, but I'll ask them to observe your dad's reactions to his personal care routine just so we can learn more about what he prefers.
I really appreciate the fact that you want to get to know more about him. This is a great place. I'm glad my dad is here.
We're glad he's here too. And I can't wait to ask him about some of those stories you mentioned. I don't think I have any more questions unless you have some for me.
No, not right now.
Tim did a great job working with James as a proxy. He was able to keep James focused on sharing what was important to his father and encouraged him to share information that will be very helpful to members of the care team. This information will help staff build a strong and trusting relationship with Mr. Harris, create a care plan tailored to his needs and preferences, and provide meaningful and comforting daily experiences for him. While family members and close friends can be a wealth of information, they may not know everything when it comes to daily care preferences. There are also many instances where a person does not have a family member or close friend to contact, or their contact person does not respond. If the proxy is unsure of preference information, or if no proxy is available, the direct care worker's experiences may provide insight into the individual's preferences. The following scene highlights how care team members can act as proxies based on careful observation.
Thank you again for meeting with me, Morgan. It's really valuable to have the input of you and the other aides.
Well, we do get to know the residents pretty well.
So I know your shift just started, so I won't take up too much of your time. You said that you and the other aides put together some notes about Mr. Harris?
Yeah, we like to make notes about the residents' likes and dislikes, especially the newer ones. If someone on another shift finds something out, they try to let the rest of us know, especially if they find out what not to do.
That's great. I love the teamwork.
Well, it's hard to take care of someone when they're upset with you. The last thing we want to do is upset anyone. I brought the notes we put together so we can help.
Thank you so much. So let's start with his morning routine. What time does Mr. Harris like to wake up in the morning?
Well, I'm not here in the morning, but Brittany wrote that Mr. Harris has been waking up between 4:30 and 5 and walking the halls. So they've been starting his morning routine at that time.
Does Brittany have any other details?
Yes, he likes to listen to the radio in the morning, especially 107.3. He likes to sing when he's getting ready. It seems to put him in a good mood. He's got a really good voice, too. He loves when we sing along.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes, it says here he likes to brush his teeth and wash his face with warm water. He'll do it mostly by himself, but sometimes he needs help to get started.
This is great. What about bathing?
Bathing. Well, when he first moved here, he was refusing to take a shower. Someone was trying on every shift, and it took us a while to figure it out.
What'd you figure out?
We noticed he was most reluctant to first shift. Once he's dressed in the morning, he doesn't like to get undressed after breakfast for a shower. It seems to really upset him. And even though he likes to wake up early, third shift also noticed some reluctancy to bathe in the morning. He would say things like, "No time, gotta get going," over and over. But then Tim told us that Mr. Harris used to be a school principal and would get to work really early in the mornings. We feel like that might be why he feels like he has to rush. He doesn't want to be late for school.
That makes sense. So what about evenings? How did that go?
Better. He's been more cooperative about bathing in the evening before bed.
So he prefers to bathe in the evening before bed. How often? And does he prefer a tub bath or a shower?
He prefers a shower every other day. We've been doing it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday because his son comes on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the evenings and on the weekends.
Okay. Anything else?
He likes to listen to gospel music when he's in the shower. It seems to make him calmer about the bathing process.
That's so interesting. How did you know that music calms him?
Well, when Tim told us that Mr. Harris used to sing in the church choir and was in an a cappella group, we figured that music might make him feel less anxious. And I can tell it's calming for him because he won't use those repetitive phrases that third shift reported, and he'll smile at me or have a smile on his face.
That's great, Morgan.
Yeah, we're happy to play music during his morning and night routine. It makes it easier and more enjoyable for all of us.
I can't tell you enough how much we value these observations. So, what can you tell me about getting Mr. Harris dressed in the morning? How important is it for him to pick out his own clothes?
I would say not very important. When he first moved here, he was having trouble picking out his own clothes and getting dressed by himself. It would make him really upset. He would just stand in front of his closet saying, I don't know, over and over.
Were you able to figure out why?
Well, we mentioned it to his son, and he said that his wife used to lay out his clothes for him. So he was not surprised to hear that Mr. Harris was having a hard time with it.
So who picks out his clothes for him now?
I pick out his clothes for him in the evening. He was getting frustrated when third shift would try to do it in the morning. That's when they would hear him say, gotta get going.
I'm glad you got that figured out.
Yes, and sometimes he needs reassurance that his clothes are ready, so I make sure to show him where they're at before I leave in the evening.
This is great. Okay, next question.
Morgan did a great job reporting the observations she and other direct care workers made regarding Mr. Harris's preferences. When it's been determined that staff observation is needed to understand preferences, make sure the resident has had time to adjust to their new home and has had the opportunity to get into a routine. Staff may be able to determine preferences for daily patterns by being attentive and noting when residents naturally rise and want to go to bed, as well as observing individuals' emotional reactions to activities throughout their day. Observing emotion can be highly beneficial in learning the preferences of individuals who are no longer able to express themselves verbally. Training your staff to look for signs of interest and pleasure or anger and anxiety will help them provide the care planning team with valuable information. Let's review some key tips for engaging proxies when an individual is unable to communicate or participate in a preference interview. Individuals with mild and moderate cognitive limitations can still report on their preferences reliably and consistently. BIMS or MMSE scores may not always be the best indicator of a person's ability to convey their preferences. Approach the individual 3 separate times on different days before determining that a proxy is needed. Break the interview into shorter segments of just a few questions so it's easier for the individual to participate. If the response categories are confusing, simplify the response options to important or not important. If the preference is important, try the unfolding technique. Ask whether the preference is very or somewhat important. If it's been determined that an individual can't answer PELI questions, interview a family member or close friend who knows the individual's preferences well and can speak on their behalf. This person could also be the power of attorney or other responsible party. Decide how you'll collect the information. For the best results, conduct proxy interviews in person or over the phone. Choose an interview location that's quiet and private. Schedule the interview at a time that's convenient for the proxy. During the interview, emphasize that you're seeking what the proxy thinks the individual would prefer, not what the proxy prefers. The proxy voice is a complement in the care planning process, not a replacement for the individual's voice. Sometimes, proxies believe their loved one can no longer pursue past interests. Remind them you would like to understand the individual's preferences so the care team can devise creative ways to honor them. Let the proxy know that staff can often adapt an activity so their loved one can continue to participate and enjoy it. If no proxy is available, the direct care worker's experiences and observations may provide valuable insight into the residents' preferences. Give new residents a few weeks to get into a routine, and then ask direct care workers to observe and take notes on the individual's reactions to daily care activities. Research supports the positive impact of having family or close friends involved in care. They can provide social support as the individual adjusts to their new home, as well as share valuable information that can help develop individualized care plans. Seeking their input is essential to the care planning process. For questions or comments about honoring people's preferences, please reach out to us at info@preference-based-living.com or visit our website at preference-based-living.com. There you'll find resources, tip sheets, and the template for creating the PAL cards to help your community on its journey towards person-centered care.